Hello and welcome. I'm with Pieta Shakes today, who is a great mentor of mine. She's the executive director of Through the Unexpected. She's an academic and a mental health nurse. So many things all at once and so many questions to ask. I want to ask you first, what is Through the Unexpected? What's that about?
Through the Unexpected is a relatively new health promotion charity that aims, well, it's a group of people that came together, and basically we want to work towards the vision where when parents receive unexpected news during their pregnancy about the health or development or genetics of their baby, we want those parents to feel informed, supported and empowered. And that's what we're working towards.
So what have you got in the pipeline for your organization in that space?
Yeah, well, at the moment, it takes a lot of energy to set up a new charity. But at the moment, we have an amazing board of people that come from all different sorts of backgrounds. We have sonographers, medical doctor who works in obstetrics. We have lawyers and people with lived experience of receiving a prenatal diagnosis. We have just a great board, really. And we have been, working out some of the details and the things that go on behind the scenes of a charity.
Yeah.
But we're just starting to get really into our first major project, which is really exciting. And it's to develop a national online training program that is going to focus on the psychosocial aspects of prenatal diagnosis. And we're hoping that it's going to be a program that draws in and builds upon prior knowledge from a range of different healthcare providers and support and care people, peer support providers as well, to really build off the knowledge and the expertise that they have, but really expand and share knowledge and collaborate and develop resources and inspire policy development and all sorts of things to fix the current situation that we have where, oh, the cat is now eating my cord. So it's going to knock the computer off the table. He's never done that before. So the training, we just want to improve the experience of receiving a prenatal diagnosis, because at the moment, the support really depends on the location, the health providers that you see, and it's just it can be somewhat an isolating experience. We just don't hear much about it. We don't talk much about it. People are hidden. Accessing supports is hard. Yeah.
So this training program sounds like a massive undertaking. And is it for health? It's for healthcare professionals to do, or who's it for?
Yeah, it's going to run pretty much like a MOOC, but
cool.
A MOOC that is a little bit more personalized for the different learners, because they come with expertise and knowledge and experience anyway. So we want them to be able to sort of choose your own adventure through the MOOC as such, rather than just doing, just watching the same thing that everybody else is. And we want to have it designed in a way that people actually in the MOOC, they come and they share their experiences and they develop resources as part of that. So part of, like the activities and things that you do can really be that people are collaborating and building some of these resources that we really need to be able to improve the experience of receiving a prenatal diagnosis. Yeah. So it's going to run like a MOOC, but it's going to have a few different design elements. So I'm really excited because it's working into my, I'm doing a grad cert in higher education, teaching and innovation. So I'm integrating that into part of my course at the moment, which is great, because then I get to really delve into the literature about how do you actually personalize learning and build from prior knowledge and experience, and offer really collaborative, not just a discussion board where where everybody just ticks it off like a task, like it says go and post on the thing. We want to have meaningful engagement on there, so it's exciting.
That sounds amazing, and it sounds really new, like you're not just breaking ground in the topic, but the way that you're providing that service, that education. So tell me a little bit more about the experience of the prenatal diagnosis stuff. It's not something we talk about. It is very hidden, like you say. I think a lot of stuff around pregnancy experiences, the negative sides, the challenges are hidden. Is it a bit more common than we probably think? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I would say so. So I guess my interest in it is from receiving a third trimester prenatal diagnosis somewhat 10 years ago now. And then when I was drawn back into this space that I'm doing my PhD on the topic, and started to sort of look into the statistics and the things that we have. Now, we don't keep great records of prenatal diagnosis because even pregnancy-related records are only mandatory from 20 weeks. So a lot of people do receive diagnoses before then and may undergo a termination or so we're not capturing all that data anyway. But even from the data that we have, which is, I guess, from that 20-week onward period, up to 6 years. So we don't know how many people are prenatally diagnosed, but we know that there's 1 in 22 babies have a major congenital anomaly. So what's major is considered something different about their health, genetics, or development that might be associated with disability or morbidity or early loss.
Okay.
And that's 1 in 22. So
that's a lot. That's a lot.
And then that doesn't even include the other people with a minor congenital anomaly, which might be a finger in a different shape or something like that. Yeah.
And that's also not including the people before 20 weeks. Is that right?
Yeah.
Why is there that distinction?
I think it's just a matter of the records being kept, really. And I mean, the records differ in different states as well. Yeah. So even accessing that information is tricky. And I mean, honestly, it's quite difficult information to get, I would imagine, because even like some pregnancies are lost before they even are realized, really. Yeah. So yeah.
So what would you have liked from your lived experience if you had the ideal experience 10 years ago with your pregnancy? What would have been different about it?
Oh geez, good question. I don't know, because I kind of see it in the time and space that it was 10 years ago.
Lots of change since then.
It's hard to say. Yeah. So it's hard to sort of say that, because I also know that the people that that did come into my life at that time, the different healthcare providers and things, they were empathetic and supportive. I guess what I did notice is I got my results by reading my report, so that wasn't even handed over to me, and so I chased the maternal fetal medicine clinic and rang them up myself, and then there was so much waiting time. I was living in a regional area at the time, so to see anyone, it would be hours long drive. There was just a lot of waiting, seeing different people. I know that, there are moments where I would have liked perhaps it to go different, like, having so my daughter has a neurological anomaly and her brain had developed differently. And when I think there is a difference in brain development and a lot of other different conditions or major congenital anomalies as such, No matter at what stage you are in your pregnancy, you are presented with the option to continue or to end your pregnancy. And I think, you know, to have that option at a time when I had already painted the nursery, I had prepared everything, I had folded the clothes, I had packed my hospital bag, you know, I had planned my future of what this baby was going to bring to the family, and you know, I had envisioned all of that. So to go to a first appointment and have it confirmed that yes, there is something different there, and for the first thing to be presented of, well, that's okay, we can book you in, and you know, you can undergo a termination, and you'll tell people that you had a stillborn.
Wow, yeah.
You know, I probably wouldn't like that to be my first thing if I could have chosen. Another family might, you know, it's really hard to say.
Absolutely.
Experience is beyond just mine. But and then another thing, I guess, further down the line that stands out is that after, you know, I had made the decision to continue my pregnancy, and I was having another scan, and the sonographer had specifically given me different advice first, and then had specifically asked why I would continue the pregnancy, because in their country everyone would terminate. So you know, there was this sense of, oh, am I doing the wrong thing? And like, it's a really difficult time. You're grappling with the fact that you have to face a reality that you never predicted, but also potentially be a person that goes against your identity or the things that you've come to understand. Like, I'm very equity focused, I'm very diversity focused, but on the other side of that, to think or to be in a position where everybody else thinks that the best thing to do for maybe a baby is to let them go, it's a very hard thing to deal with. Like, how do you manage that? How do you put it all together without thinking, oh, am I just selfish then? I remember then thinking about, oh, what am I going to do with all the nursery stuff then? And then really punishing myself with that after, like, that is such a minor thing. Why would you even go there?
It sounds, you mentioned isolating before, and it sounded so isolating when you're talking about having to read the report yourself and go on that journey on your own. And just, I can imagine the long drives in the car and just feeling like there's not a lot out there for you that's supporting you. And then being challenged every step of the way with your decision. And particularly that you talked about that first conversation being really rough. And I wonder if there's an overhaul that can happen with the way that we talk about offering terminations, or whatever that conversation is called, because that is something that whichever side of the fence you're on in that regard, lots of people have lots to say about how that conversation is handled in different contexts. And it's quite challenging. And I just don't feel like anybody in their medical context is handling that very well. And you described it so well there, that really sort of being on your own. So the importance of your organization, I guess part of it is going to be that people won't be on their own, that you're going to change the way the medical system approaches this stuff. That's sort of what I'm getting out of this, and it sounds amazing.
I do want to recognize though that there are services and providers out there that are doing wonderful things and really do have, you know, people's well-being and everything in mind. Like, but I think also there's systemic problems. There's not enough time. People are seen for a short time. so many appointments in a day. There's no training on this.
Yeah.
So the Australian Sonographers Association, had been calling for training on this for years. They even put in like a submission when the inquiry in Victoria antenatal care was there. They put in the submission. Sonographers were wanting training to how to navigate this sort of delivery of news and navigate loss as well in that circumstance. And so from that, there were big packages all about perinatal loss, and we have support groups and we have all these different pathways. I'm not saying that it's an easy experience anyway, but the part that was overlooked is still this, when there's a difference. So there are people out there and they're doing wonderful things, but it's missing from all the guidelines. Like the National Pregnancy Care Guidelines have like one line that if an anomaly is identified, the expectant parents should be supported by trained professionals. That's it. Like that's the guidelines people have to go from. That's really bad. So we end up in a situation where, like, I was quite lucky. I had several appointments and things, but I've spoken to families who have attended one single appointment, received the news there, and when people just receive news and they leave, often they actually don't even remember what the condition or the anomaly or things were called either. People are in shock. They're not taking in information. Yeah. But some people are only getting one appointment and that's it. And then they go away. Like that's systemic things. We need to be able to support and improve and nurture as well the professionals that are in there, and bring lived experience into that to guide how we do that as well. And make changes that way. So I do just want to emphasize that there are
there's lots of great professionals out there, but there's some room for improvement as well, and the system is fundamentally flawed in a way that doesn't support those great professionals that are out there.
And it's so strange considering, like, we have a national prenatal screening program, but once you go through screening and go to diagnosis, it's all quiet. Nobody talks about it. We won't talk about those people that we're screening, and we're going to identify even more and more and more as new genetic tests come out and technology improves as well.
And I wonder, you talked about your view of the world as very equity focused and pro diversity and stuff, and you're coming up against professionals that are not like that. And it sounds like the system is set up to find people who don't fit the right box of what the medical system wants us to be. And then that lack of support reflects that, because it's meant to identify those people, and then that's the job. Like, the support isn't there because it was never meant to be. That's what I'm sort of feeling from that. But that doesn't mean that not everyone in the medical system thinks like that, and that doesn't mean that we can't change it. So that's just. And
you know what, you are right. Like we can't look over that part of it as well, because there is a part of it in there that's exactly like that. And even when antenatal screening was initially sort of introduced, and even going back 20 or 30 years, there would be providers that would refuse to offer screening unless unless a pregnancy was going to be ended. And there's also people that don't have, I also just need to throw out there as well that there are people that it's not really a choice for them for a whole range of different things. Like I really do come from from a pro-choice perspective, I guess, but choice isn't even the right word sometimes, because there's a whole massive range of differences that can be identified prenatally, and sometimes those differences can actually mean that it's life limiting for the
Yeah.
the baby, or even, you know, even can introduce more risk for the parent as well. So it's so complex, and this is probably why it's so harsh and no one talks about it, because
yeah, absolutely. It's I don't want to feel like what I'm saying or what anybody's saying is judging people. It's no one can tell another person what to do with their own body. What we need is a medical system that gives people informed choices, which isn't happening to the degree that it ought to be, and then support with whatever choice they make. And the choices that we make are individual ones for very specific circumstances that don't map onto a broad range of experiences, because there's so many different things going on with each individual person and each individual pregnancy. So
absolutely.
So from that bombshell, can we move to
talk about it forever?
Oh, absolutely. That I want to ask you though about your academic work.
Yes.
Okay. What's happening? What are you doing? What you're doing? Some research. Tell me about that.
Well, I guess the research is more so my PhD, which isn't really work. That's as a student still. So my PhD, I'm midway through, and then I took a year off so that I could buy an apartment, because you know you can't really buy a house when you're on a stipend. But my PhD is looking at the maternal experience of receiving a prenatal diagnosis of agenesis of the corpus callosum. So,
and what's been your experience in that academic journey so far? And can you tell me a little bit about how you're exploring that topic?
How I'm exploring that topic, as in methodology wise and things, is that what you mean? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what yeah.
So my study is a hermeneutic phenomenological study. So it aims to I'm undertaking or I have undertaken a series of interviews with and now the cat's falling off the washing machine. Oh my God. He must have known I was having an interview. I have, undertaken a series of interviews with different mothers all around the world who have received a prenatal diagnosis of ACC. And in that interview, we really tried to just go back and walk through that experience, sort of bit by bit, focus on what actually happened sort of day by day, moment by moment. And then with that data, I have then taken it to a couple of focus groups, which are with other mothers and some of those ones from the interviews. Focus groups just to really refine, I guess, my interpretation of this experience that people have been sharing. So it's finding some of the shared experiences and really sort of putting together what this means then, what I'm coming to understand this experience to mean, and to unpack some of that, and some really, I think it's going in the right direction. I think I would like to have another round of the focus groups, but I think we're getting to the pointy end where there's some really, really important information coming through and coming out of it. So the aim, I guess, is just to bring some kind of light to what it is, because it is such a hidden thing. And I think we can't, like, I think any healthcare provider in any role, you know, there's a limited amount of understanding we can provide if we don't try and capture some of that lived experience, if we don't try and see it from other people's perspectives.
Absolutely. I'm all about the value of lived experience and lived experience research, and of course you were one of the people that got me into that sort of stuff. It's a whole wealth of information that we can't get from other means, from more traditional means. And we can take things like the story that you just told from your personal experience and make healthcare systems better, or whatever the case may be. There's so much that we can do with it. There's so much value. So I'm really excited about where that stuff is going, and you'll have to keep us posted.
I'm excited too, and I think it's quite different. Like, I think some people think, oh, well, that's okay, you just send out a survey and ask what people want in that experience. But it's really interesting, because even me sitting here 10 years later, what I would say now to what I want is so different to when I was in that experience back then. Because I've had all of this time and all of these layers, all this time to reinterpret that experience and to come to new understandings of that experience. So if we want to be able to actually understand lived experience as it's lived, we have to try and go back in and try and, as I said, walk through those moments with the participants. So it's not about capturing reflections or a survey about what people think might be helpful, but it's about actually trying to unpack some of that. Well, then what happened next? What could you see on the wall? Like, bringing people back into that space so that they can actually share it as it's positioned in the time, in the space that they're in. So
yeah, absolutely. There's so much more complexity to that stuff that you're talking about than a feedback survey, or that sort of surface level that you sort of initially think of as getting people's opinions. And I want to ask you about your experience as a mental health nurse. That's your background, more or less. What is mental health?
So I guess you could look at it from two different perspectives, because sometimes people say, mental health is they mean like the healthy version of that, and sometimes they just mean it as in like a comparison to like physical health. So I guess it depends which one you mean first.
So well, like, to be healthy, like mentally healthy, what, or mentally unhealthy, like what does that mean?
It's a good question. And you would think that as a mental health nurse I have a set single response, but I have a very fluid interpretation, because I think that mental health, or to be mentally healthy, and to have mental health challenges arise, is a very personal thing and different for different people. I think that different people understand it differently. I think that some people embrace or understand or accept the concept of, say, mental illness, and it provides them with meaning for some of the experiences that they've had. And some people adamantly oppose the conceptualization of mental illness. So I guess to be mentally healthy, or to have mental health, or positive mental health, or well-being, I think it's about being okay within yourself, being in a position where you can interact with the environment around you in some way that makes positive meaning and experiences for yourself. And being able to ride the waves as they come. So there's a lot of individual variation in people's ability to do that sort of stuff. There's a lot of like social conceptions of what those things might mean. So it is very, you described it as fluid, and that's sort of what I'm getting from how you're describing it. And there's so much more to brain chemistry and genetics, but also the
the social environment that we're raised in terms of how we ride the waves that we go through that can impact mental health. So I think of corpus callosum disorders as a neurodiversity, and I'm open to people who think differently about that. But I'm interested in how you feel about neurodiversity and where you draw the line between mental health and neurodiverse stuff.
Oh, the line between mental health and neurodiversity. I'm not really sure that I could draw a line, because that's kind of implies that there's a difference between them and that there's this binary aspect to them. And I don't think that it is. Like, I would think that neurodiversity can even encompass how, like,
you can have both, and you can have neither, I guess. And I guess you could describe autism, for example, in a purely neurodiversity paradigm, however you want to call that, which takes it out of my understanding of what I think of when I think of mental health. Like, for example, take depression. Some people would describe that under the banner of neurodiversity, and I would think of it as a mental health problem. Like, you can be normal, whatever that means, and then become depressed, and then seek treatment, whatever that might be, and then return to whatever you were before you became depressed. And that doesn't describe the experience of what I think of when I think of neurodiversity. Like, you can't do that with autism, and you also don't need to. I think what I think of when I think of neurodiversity, and this relates to corpus callosum disorders, because I think of them as a neurodiversity. It's kind of like we need environmental change, social change around neurodiversities in order for them to thrive. Whereas I don't think we need that with depression, although maybe we do. Like, maybe we need to make a better society where less people are depressed or whatever. But like, I've backed myself into a hole where I'm disagreeing with myself as the sentence went on. Yeah, so autism is like is the sort of keystone of the neurodiverse movement. It's something where you can't not be autistic. We need to live in a world that provides an optimal environment for autistic people and people with different minds to thrive. But traditionally, we think of depression as an individual problem that you can go to therapy, take some medication, and become the person that you were before, whereas that's not how autism works. But now that I'm saying that out loud, lots of people do talk about how society is set up, how lots of social change needs to happen so that people don't become depressed in the first place. So I don't know where I'm going with that, because that's my example of like the difference, and I just messed it up for myself. So
it'd be interesting, because I guess that comes back to the way that people might or how people perceive different mental health challenges or mental health conditions. And if someone does very much perceive an episode of depression as this thing that you go into and that you get treatment and you come out of, like the medical model would suggest, then I can see why you would be thinking that there's a difference there, other than the fact that we know that people who are neurodivergent for the whole gamut of reasons have a higher prevalence of co-occurring mental health conditions as well. So there's
Yeah.
already there's something in there that, but there's other people that wouldn't perceive that sort of medical dominant model of mental health and mental illness anyway, where you know, even for sort of episodic periods and people that really reject that space. So I think if you're going to put them at two ends of the coin, I think they would need to be clear concepts. And to me, they're not. They're fluid, because it really depends on where somebody situates themselves. If they say I'm neurodivergent because I have depression, then to me, that as a mental health nurse, that's their being, that's their word, that's their interpretation, and I'm there to support that and understand that and help them.
So in your education becoming a mental health nurse, and I say this as a person that probably should know the answer to this question, being a nurse myself, but I'm not a mental health nurse. How was your education? Like, I had a very medical model education. We talked a lot about sociology, but like not really. Like, it was still like stepping out of the medical model into something that was not really challenging it, to talk about social issues. And then as I've gone further in my education, stepping outside of like traditional nursing education opportunities, that's when I've sort of really challenged ideas about what healthcare is, and what being healthy is, and that sort of stuff. Do you feel like me? Do you feel like you come from the medical model world and are challenging that as you live through different experiences, or did you have a more rounded experience, or your background as a person who was very open and the person that we've seen today is very open-minded and pro-diversity and all this stuff? Were you already like that person? How did it shape you?
No, I think I've grown lots more recently. I guess my nursing experience was, we had more mental health content than many universities do today. We did mental health units in every semester throughout the 3 years. And then I guess I've just gone down that path. So then I've done, you know, Masters of Mental Health Nursing and a postgrad in child and adolescent mental health nursing. And then, you know, my honours was, well, no, that it's situated in the space. But yeah, I guess even though there was a lot of mental health involved, I think time-wise as well, like that's a good 20 years ago I was at uni.
Okay.
And I think nurses back then, again, I think we trained more in the medical model because we learned more about that. Whereas now I work sessionally as well. And, you know, I work sessionally and teach about mental health promotion and some of the different units that I've taken. And just to try to bring different lens, even in the mental health units that I've taught into, we have tried to, probably not as much as I would like, but tried to bring in more lived experience and more different interpretations, and that there's actually different ways of seeing the world. And I think, I think until you learn that stuff, I don't know what it is that helps people learn that. Maybe age, wisdom.
Yeah, and I think it's very much a just a bigger grounding in sort of a liberal arts approach to education. Gives us a lot of those perspectives.
I would love to bring something like philosophy and things into nursing units in general. But the same part of it, like you've got to think about who goes into nursing, what they're wanting from nursing, and meeting their objectives as well, because otherwise there'll be a whole people that won't continue with nursing. So I think you've got to somehow build it. I don't know. It's not as simple
Yeah.
as just changing nursing.
No, it's definitely not.
It's adding things in, but how do you add things into a crowded program already that doesn't fit
Yeah.
enough other things in? Like, we
Yeah.
don't do enough about diversity.
No, we
You know,
don't.
there might
Yeah.
be like in an undergrad program, there might, like, if you're lucky, they might have like one case study of 1 hour in a 3-year program about nursing, or working with a client that has an intellectual disability.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just, yeah.
It's not enough, but not enough around. And you talked about, why do people go into nursing? So many different people are going into nursing for so many different reasons. So we're going to disappoint somebody. That's, you know, we could have
This
the
is true.
broadest program and not hit all the marks. But at the same time, like I left uni. Well, I've never left uni, but I finished my bachelor's like 8 years ago. So I'm old and irrelevant, but like 1/3 of us graduated that started the degree, like, and I don't think much has changed. So we've already got the problem of people leaving.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
do actually. Yeah, so let's bring philosophy and things in.
yeah, exactly. Like, it's already not working, so you know, we may as well change it up.
I wonder how many people go back though. Like, it'd be interesting. Yeah, I haven't had a look at the stats, but
I've
and now I'm
never thought about that.
teaching into postgraduate nursing courses instead. So it's a bit of a different dynamic.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
I find learning and being taught and then being around other students at the postgraduate level more fun. There's more of a wanting to be there, so it's just easier. And it's, yeah, I don't know if that's the same from the teaching end, or if it's just, I suppose it's a different challenge teaching people at that level.
Yeah, it's exciting. They have a whole lot of different experiences to share and things that I learned from people. Although even the undergrad, I was learning lots from people as well. Just, yeah, had different perspectives on things, and yeah, it's just different. It's just a different challenge.
And
it's good.
How does your lived experience of all the stuff that you've done, can you bring that into your teaching, and does that make, like, because that would make you like the coolest teacher ever. I'm envisioning lots of cool feedback from your students. Does that inform the way that you teach? Can you surely you could be a better teacher knowing all the stuff that you know and having that lived experience? I don't know. Do you feel like you're more equipped?
I think so, because I think even if it's just from the lens of understanding people better, that people aren't, you know, those people in the room, students or learners, they haven't all had the same privileges, they haven't all got the same home environments, they haven't all got the same work environments, they haven't all, you know, they've come from different backgrounds, different things, they've got different points of view, they've got so much to bring, so much to share, so much to offer. You know, I think because I really see it like that, and I think that I do bring that into the classroom, and people have commented on that, because it's not about what I'm going to tell them or teach them, because like we've moved well beyond the time where, you know, learning is about just remembering facts, because facts, they change, knowledge and truths change, they're time bound, they're dependent, they can be challenged, they're situated in society. So I want to go in there and can co-construct all that knowledge with people, and, you know, fill the gaps, or help them find the gaps, and help them understand the right questions to ask, and how we come there together. Yeah, so that I like, that makes me excited about teaching. That's why I like it.
Awesome.
And yeah, and I had some good feedback about that, so
yeah
that's nice.
I love teaching conceptually, in terms of like being a preceptor on the job and being able to share knowledge and see people, nursing students and that sort of thing, challenge themselves and grow and that sort of thing. So it certainly an area that I would want to go into one day when I know something that I can teach. I always conceptualize teachers as people that know stuff that can then share it. Although you're challenging that at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, one day I'll be good enough. I want to wrap it up, but I want to ask you a hairy question to do so. What can ordinary people do around the space of difficult pregnancies, challenges in pregnancies, that, you know, family members and friends have challenging news, challenging journeys to go through? What can ordinary people do to make that better? How can we impact people to make that experience easier, to support people? We know that the medical system can change, but what if we don't have any power in the medical system? What can ordinary people do?
Oh, wow, there's so many layers to that question, isn't it? Even that, what if we can't change the medical system? Medical systems have changed with times for a long time, so don't give up just yet.
That's true.
But what can ordinary people do? I guess that depends if you mean on a big sort of nationwide scale, like, yeah, come and check out Through the Unexpected, donate,
yeah,
do some fundraising
of course.
for us.
Yes,
but
yes.
If you mean like on the level of supporting somebody who's going through an experience or had an experience, I guess it just comes down to always coming back to what it means for them and where they're at, and understanding that they're going to be in a different, that people are going to handle it different, they're going to make different decisions, or have different journeys that might not be right for what you would think that you would do in that situation.
Yeah.
But that is going to be the right thing for them.
Yes.
For whatever reasons they have come to understand it. And I think accepting people, allowing them an accepting, safe space to just be, to not have to answer, not feel judged, not have to question, to even in that midst of prenatal diagnosis time, being that person that is really practical, that'll just come and clean the house for them because they're not in the headspace to do it. Like, there are things that people can actually do that don't involve sitting down and talking about it, because not everybody wants to. Some people do, some people don't. So I guess if it's somebody that you actually know going through it, my biggest thing is position them, like how they see it is what's important. Find out the meaning for them and where they're at with it, like, and just support them.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. That's given me so much to think about just now, but I loved the way that you described teaching. I loved the way that you described nursing. And I love that the work that you're doing in academics, but also in changing. You're going to change the world one step at a time. It's true. We're witnessing something great. You're already doing great things, but it's going to be amazing when you get these things underway. I'm so excited for. So I can't wait to hear about how they go. And thank you so much for spending the time with me to talk about all this stuff.
Thanks for chatting. Thanks for inviting me to chat. And I look forward to seeing all the things that you're doing, because you just keep doing new things too. It's amazing.
Not as exciting as what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Don't say it's all short.
Thank you.